So here's part two of my shop tour. I'm actually in my shop. It's a small building in North Reading. It's about 20 minutes from my house. There's the Firebird sitting here. There's the old 6-cylinder out of the Firebird that I recently pulled out. There's a 455 Olds I had on the Firebird a couple of years ago. This giant green thing is a belt sander. It's a 6-inch by 80-inch belt. It's humongous. This thing has a 3-horsepower motor. I wanted a belt sander that wouldn't get bogged down by sanding metal and heavy stuff, and this is the guy. This is a Kalamazoo bandsaw. This is a great saw I bought over the summer. Cuts nice and straight. With reasonable money, $300. So it serves me well. There's some Camaro parts. There's a tire machine I bought. One of my neighbors moved out, so I bought his tire machine. Everybody has to have a tire machine, right? Sure, it was cheap, what the hell. Little bench grinder mounted to a pole. This is a South Bend, believe it or not. It's a South Bend heavy 10 lathe, they call it. A heavy 10 is a 10-inch distance lathe. This is a 4-foot bed. And the thing with a heavy 10, they make a light 10 and a heavy 10. They both have a 10-inch distance from the center of the chuck to the bed, but the heavy 10 has a larger hole right here. You can take like a 1 3/8 inch shaft, whereas a regular 10, the light 10, is under an inch or right around an inch. So the heavy 10, you can do a lot more stuff with it. And it has a more powerful motor, I think, too. So I bought this off a friend of a friend. It's in pieces. And I knew it would be a project, but he told me it was, low use. It was out of a school. And, just clean it up, put it back together again. But the friend of the friend only gave me 3/4 of the parts. So it kind of pissed me off. So it just sat here. And I found this Chinese lathe. This is a Jet for sale up in New Hampshire. It was a bit of a ride, and it was cheap. And it was like really good shape, low use. It's an adorable little thing. I've used the crap out of it already. Believe it or not, it's pretty useful. It's small. It's probably a 4 or 5 inch chuck. It's about a 6-inch swing. Actually, a 6 is 12. Because the way the swing works, it's the center of the chuck to the bed ways, and then you double it. So if this is 5 inches made of here, you could put a 10-inch object in it because, 5 inches here, 5 inches here. It won't hit. So I never measured it, but I'm guessing that's a 5 or a 6-inch distance. So it's a 10 or a 12-inch swing. But look at it. I mean, it's a toy. It's a very tiny little machine. It works well. The drive belt is literally it's the size of like a carrot. I mean, it's a tiny. I'll show you. It's a tiny little drive belt. I mean, look at it. That's the drive belt. I mean, holy shit! Look at that thing. This gear is plastic, which is a sacrificial gear. So again, it's a toy, but it's a useful toy. I mean, look at the chips. I've already machined shit down on it, so it does work. But it was cheap. It was in really good shape. And I needed a lathe. The one I had croaked on me, so I needed a lathe. So I picked this thing up. And then I bought that heavy 10 in pieces, which, as you can see, I haven't got very far with it. This is another carbide grinder. I mean, if you have a lathe, you use carbide bits, or you use bits you need to sharpen. So once in a while, you have to have a carbide grinder around, which is just like the one at my house. Diamond on one side, stone on the other. This is an old Delta, I believe. Yeah, it's a nice machine. The bench grinder, an old drill press. Again, it's a Delta. A friend of mine had it in her basement. She wanted to get rid of it, so she gave it to me. You can't go wrong. This is my Blackhawk tranny jack. If you watch my videos, you see I rebuilt this thing because it was leaking like a sieve. It doesn't leak anymore. It works great. And the guy I work with helped me make this base. We happen to have this piece kicking around. So I made a piece to go from here to there to adapt it. And then he made this framework on top. There's the Camaro. On this corner of the shop by the Camaro, I have an air conditioner. Just goes through the window. And a heater. So I keep it around 55 year round. So it never gets below like 55 in here. And the AC will bring it down to 70 when it's 95 outside. So that's not so bad. It's pretty livable in here. Very, very handy. Shitload of Camaro parts. This is a bench from my friend Steve. When he passed away, I bought the vise from his shop. Well, this is the bench from his shop too. And I have this vise at my house. And there's a jack and other crap. And my lift, this is a It's a Mohawk A7 lift. It's very low height, so it fits in here easily. You just have the overhead hydraulic steel lines that tie it together. There's nothing on the bottom, so you drive right through it. And it has the asymmetric arms, so one is shorter than the other. You know, the ceiling height is only 10'6" in here. Luckily, I'm short, so this works fine for me. For a normal height person, there's your air quotes. It probably would be a little bit too low for you, but it works great for me. This is my Bridgeport. It's a J-head Bridgeport. You can see it's much more massive than one at my house. This is when people talk about Bridgeports, this is the classic that they're talking about, the J-head, the different head. It's a 1 horsepower motor. The later ones were 2 horsepower. It's a wider table. My table at home was 32. I think this one's 36 inch. This is a much more robust machine. And it also has, I think it's 5.5 inches of quill travel. And if you look right there, you can see that there's a protractor scale. I'll zoom in on it. The J head will do what they call knotting. Knotting means it goes this way. So it'll go left and right like mine at home will do. This one will also tilt this way and this way, believe it or not. So it's a very, very useful machine. I've used the crap out of this thing. I think I paid $600 for it, $650. It was in New Hampshire. That's how I know how to move these things. They are a bitch to move, but you know, once you know the trick with the pipes, it's not that bad. So this thing works awesome. I used it the other day, and I'm fitting it up with a digital readout for quill travel. This thing was like $80 on eBay. It just keys into the hole in the quill piece that moves. I'm just trying to get it set up right. This is your fine feed knob. It won't fit. Duh. So I gotta move it over a little bit. I think I just have to loosen these screws and move it and then get this to line up again, but that's a work in progress. Behind it is my Delta bandsaw. I have 3 of these actually. This is the first one I bought. I bought it from a guy in Rhode Island, and he was kind of an asshole and I paid too much for it. And that clutch I showed you in the back of the one at my house, this one has the same thing. It's a metal and wood cutting saw, and you use the clutch to engage and disengage that feature. And this one, whoever had it, they just jammed like a bolt through it to lock it up in the wood, you know, high speed, the wood side I call it. So I had to take it apart. I had a machine of bushing for it to true it back up. This works great. I've used the crap out of this thing. I mean, look at all the debris on it. I mean, I've used the shit out of this thing. I've had it probably, oh boy. Well, let's see, I moved it here in 2017. I had it probably 2015. I probably had it almost 10 years. Great saw. It's old. This is from the 40s. It's an oldie. And a battery charger, pressure washer, vacuum cleaner. Yeah, nothing crazy here. 350 olds I picked up recently. It's a 1970 354 barrel engine. So, you know, I got it real cheap. I think I paid $200 for it. Someday I'll maybe go through it, but we'll see. We'll see. MIG welder, it's a Miller, it's a MIG TIG. It's a 1215 they call it, so it's 215 amps. Behind that I have an aluminum MIG welder. That's a Hobart, I think it's a 190. I think it's a 190. That one just has an aluminum spool gun on it, so all I weld with that is aluminum. And this one can do mild steel and stainless. I have a TIG welder under the bench. I don't know how to TIG weld. I took a course and I did like 10 minutes of TIG welding, so it's something I really want to revisit someday, but I just haven't got to it. But a guy I used to hang out with here with me, he used to TIG weld, so this machine works great. It's got a foot pedal, all that crap. This you've probably seen from my Sunbird video. That's a valve spring tester, just so you can test the pressure of valve springs at particular installed heights. This I just bought the other day. This thing's ancient. It's probably out of the 50s, 40s. It's called a belt lacer. And what you do with this is flat belts for like my lathe. You have to, if you cut them, to put them back together again, there's a metal mesh that goes on the end. It's like a zipper almost. This is the machine you use to squash the zipper teeth on individually. So when you open it up, how do I do this? One-handed. Oh, there you go. Basically, the belt goes in here, and then you put the metal mesh pieces on the end, and you put them in these slots. And then they have teeth that bite into the belt, and you pull these handles, and little by little, this thing clicks down. You hear it? And it crushes it down, and it's basically squeezes the metal pieces in so they can't come out, and that then you put a long pin through it. I'll show you in a minute on my belt I have over here. There's just a couple of big vices, flat vise. That's a sprinkler system for the whole complex I'm in. Where I'm at, it's industrial condos. I own this one, but there's 10 more of them. So we all have a sprinkler system, and that's the sprinkler system. It's in my condo. Lucky me. This is a Presto lift. This thing holds 1,000 pounds. And it only goes up like 5 feet. So it's perfect for picking motors up to bench height, stuff like that. Just runs on a battery. It's like a plow pump motor. Super easy to work on. You plug it into 110, charge it up. I have 2 of these. These things are great. Highly recommend them. They're cheap too. I think I paid $150 for that one. You find them all the time not working. It's always just bad connections with the battery or the starter or the motor rather. There's nothing really goes wrong with these things. So if you find one for sale, bring 2 friends, help you pick it up, and take it home and live happily ever after. They work the balls. All right, so this is my South Bend 10L Heavy 10 lathe. I bought that one in pieces. Never got around to putting it together because it's missing the motor and some other stuff. And then I found this one reasonably cheap. This was out in Connecticut too. Everything's in Connecticut, I think. Or Rhode Island, wherever the hell I got it. So I went and got this one recently, and I'm working on it, trying to get it in shape. It's ready to go now. It's going to put the chuck on it and go. I took the chuck off to mess with the, it has what they call a drawbar for collets. You put this stuff in there, and then you can put collets in the end of it. Different size collets to hold things really securely, or smaller things that you couldn't necessarily chuck up as easily. So I had to change the gearbox, or the apron they call it. This is the one that went on that lathe, actually. The one here, the one that came with this machine was worn right here, where this pinion shaft goes in. This one has like 0 play in it. This was a super nice shape. So I just swapped the apron over, and I will rebuild the other one, and then I'll put it on this machine again someday. But it's a 72. It's got a flame hardened bed. That was a feature of the newer ones. So that's nice. I bought a Colton quick change tool post for it. Colton's made in the USA, and they're relatively inexpensive. This is a taper adapter, they call it. This helps you cut tapers on the lathe. I'm not sure how it works yet. There's a couple of videos I gotta watch. But our man, Mr. Pete, he's an older guy, does machining videos. He has one I watched once, and it made sense. I gotta go watch it again to digest it all. But that came with this lathe that's in pieces, so it's part of this whole setup. So I just put it on this machine, figuring that one's gonna be a month of Sundays for us together, so I'll put it on this one. But this thing's ready to go. This is a great machine. And the belt I was talking about, if I swing this out of the way, if you see the belt, there's the belt right there. It's a flat belt, and that's the lacing, they call it. It's just metal pieces they're like claws. They bite into the rubber of the belt, or whatever the belt's made, leather in some cases, and they just join together like fingers, and you put a central rod down it to join it together, and that's it. You know, the belts that come on these things are one piece. They glue them together. So to take them apart, like I had to move this machine, you got to cut the belt. So I fixed the old belt by lacing it back together. So that's what a lacing machine does. I didn't have it at the time. I had to rough that. I did it in a bench vise with a hammer. That sucked. It works. I mean, the lathe works fine. But that's what lacing looks like. So there you go. There's the downstairs section of my shop. There is an upstairs. There's a mezzanine here. You can see the floor. And this was a tire shop way, way, way back when it was first built. So that floor is, I want to say it's 150 PSI per square foot. So that upper floor will hold a shitload of weight. And when I go upstairs, you'll see I have a shitload of weight up there. So thank God, it'll be on my head right now. Oh, and this is my forklift. You know, since I have it upstairs and there's a hole in my floor right here to load things upstairs, I take advantage of it. So I needed something that would go up 12 feet to put everything upstairs. So I bought this forklift. It's a 1995 Komatsu electric forklift. Had low miles. It was only 500 hours rather. I think it's 500 something hours on it. But naturally, the battery was junk. So a $1,200 fork truck, I had to buy a $4,000 battery for it, which sucked. But the battery that was in it had bad cells, so you'd move it 5 feet, and if you overloaded it, it would stop right there and deplete all the battery energy. So you had to plug it in, charge it for 10 minutes, and you get another, 5, 10 feet to overloaded it again. So I finally bought a battery for it. All the difference in the world. This thing is so versatile. I couldn't take it outside before because if it croaked outside, how are you going to get back in? Now I can drop it anywhere I want. I mean, not that you're going to go to town with this thing, but I mean, it'll do whatever I want. If you have a shop with an upstairs, I highly recommend a forklift because they're, you can pick up whatever you want with it. So I'll show you upstairs and you'll see what I store up there. So here we are upstairs, and it's a bit cluttered and messy right now in the middle of moving stuff around. But just got more machinery. There's a shelf full of Pontiac 455 parts and some random Oldsmobile parts, 84 Hurst old seats, bunch of 204 hours under the bench. This is the storage area right here next to the office. It's just a small little cubby, and I have this aluminum walkway to get to it because there's no other way to get to it. This is a prefab office that came with the building. When I bought this place, it was a drive shaft shop, so this was the office. I don't use it much anymore. I used to when I was working full-time because I would work out of here when the other guy was downstairs TIG welding or whatever. But now it's just, somewhere to sit down and eat lunch. Here's a drill press I bought. It's an old Craftsman. Great drill press from the 80s. It works the balls, but I have that Delta downstairs, so I don't use it very often. But it does work awesome. That's just a bench drill press I bought. I thought I needed it at home, and I never used it, so I brought it here to get it out of my way at home. That is a heat and air conditioner because it gets hot up here in the summer, so that air conditioner, the top area of the shop. Toolbox, storage stuff, bench for rebuilding Turbo 400 that I took apart and rebuilt, and it's still sitting here, almost done, probably 5 years ago. There's a Buick Turbo V6, may go in the Firebird someday, who knows, you never know. A TV with Chromecast on it, so I can watch YouTube videos if I need to while I rebuild stuff. Another bench, parts washer. This is an old, I think what they call this thing. It's a scroll saw. It was free. The guy was giving it away, so I went and grabbed it. And it worked great till the motor burned up, so I need to swap the motor out. This is another of those Craftsman bandsaws. These are great. They're just small. They're very, very undersized. This one's worked great till it screwed up on me, too, so I have two that don't work very well I got to fix and probably get rid of. This is an old Delta sander that I used to use all the time until I bought that monster downstairs. I'm probably going to give it to my brother if he ever takes it out of here. This is another cherry picker I have just to move stuff around. These are spare motors. It's a spare Pontiac 6-cylinder. Hopefully my friend Dave will take it when he takes out of the motor. There's a small block Chevy back there to my friend's Monty SS. That's an 89 Firebird 350 motor that he built for his Monty. It's got a GM hot roller cam in it. It's got an old Holley Stealth Ram intake on it, if you can see it. It's a pretty cool motor. It made, basically like 410 horsepower, 420 horsepower. It made like 327 of the rear wheels. And I think his car went 13.2 like 104 with it, which is pretty cool for a full-size Monty SS. This is a rotted set of Oldsmobile headers I picked up. That is a 2.8 and a 125 transmission out of that Cavalier I potted out. That's a 425 Olds. That is a Turbo 400. Actually, no, take that back. It's a 350. That is a 204R. That is a 400. That is a 350 Olds. That's a 425 block back there. There's a crank that goes to it somewhere. These are all 204Rs. This is a 700R4 to my friend's Monte Carlo SS that motor came out of. Some converters and a couple of Turbo 400s, a couple more 204Rs. I have a lot of 204Rs. That's a 400 I stole the pump out of. That is another 204R. That's a 350. Used to be in the Firebird a million years ago. That is a Turbo 400 from a 71 Olds 442. When I had the 455 and the Firebird, that's the tranny that was behind it. That's a TCI, I believe, rebuilt Turbo 400. Works great, shifts great. That is a Buick V6. It's an 85 Cutlass, 55,000 mile take-up motor I got from a friend of mine. That's a 292 Chevy. They used to use them in the vehicles at work. That's all rebuilt, believe it or not, just been sitting on the shelf. 0 miles on it. These are the spare 125s to the Sunbird. I rebuilt them and they're ready to go. This is a workbench that's in my way. My brother better get out of here pretty soon before I cut it in pieces and give it to him piece by piece. That is a Craftsman radial arm saw. It's a Craftsman radial arm saw. I don't use it very often, but it works great when I need it. That, believe it or not, is a hydraulic hose crimping machine. That's a Parker. I've never used it. It was from my business. We got one from a vendor, I think a Weatherhead machine, and they kept haunting me to get it out of there, so I took it here. It's extremely heavy. I've never used it. I'll probably end up giving it away to somebody eventually. This is my other Presto lift. This one is higher, and I think it holds 2,000 pounds. The one I have downstairs is short enough that I can't get to the top shelf, so I used to use it to get to the middle shelf, but I bought this one to allow me to go to the top shelf, so it'll go that high and slide trannies up there or whatever. There's a 455 Pontiac I was going to build for the Firebird, but never did. It's right here. It's all machined and ready to assemble. Someday maybe I will. There's the pistons for it. The 3.4 V6 I was going to put in the Sunbird is in that box. Maybe someday, who knows. That's just an air hose, and this is the access to get to the the forklift downstairs to bring stuff up. Another set of Oldsmobile heads. There's a sandblasting cabinet. Yes, I have one here too. This is the third Delta bandsaw. I bought this thing for $100. It's beat to shit. It does run, but the blade fell off. Has urethane tires on it, which is pretty cool. Original motor, the reversible motor. The shaft goes out on both sides, so you can reverse it if you have to. These things are super expensive, so when you find them cheap, I just grab them. Not that I need any more of them, but it was cheap. And this is a brake lathe I got from a friend of mine. We swapped some parts and machinery, so I got this brake lathe I got to put together one of these days. And that's about it. There's the back seat for the Camaro, the bottom half of it. You saw the top half of my house. And that's it up here. Actually, I'll show you this because I think it's kind of funny. When I bought that 350 Olds downstairs, the guy was trying to sell this 65 Olds Turbo 400 switch pitch transmission. And he wanted $100, and no one took it. So he said, "Hey, you want that tranny?" I said, "I already have one. I have one on the shelf, believe it or not." He's like, "You could take it. Just take it." So I took it. These transmissions are, they're dinosaurs. The guys with Buick Grand Sports love them. I don't know if you know what a switch pitch 400 is, but the vanes in the converter are movable. The way it works is this. From the manufacturer, GM, when you're at low speed, the converter goes into the high stall mode. So you have, say, 2,500 stall to take off. And then when you get to, say, 20 or 25 miles an hour, it goes into low stall mode because you don't need high stall. So it's almost like a lockup converter, but it doesn't quite lock. It just changes the amount of slip. So what the Buick guys have done, they'll wire it up to a 12-volt switch, and they'll launch the car with, say, 2,500, 3,000 stall. Then when it shifts to second gear, they'll put it in low stall. So basically you have a high stall converter when you launch and a tight converter when you're down the track. So it takes away some of the slip. I only took it because I have one. I used to have this on my 442. It's a 67 442 switch pitch tranny. And parts are really hard to find for these. So I figured nothing else, I got spare parts. I mean, the converter, those are worth some dough. They made them in the small engines, like a 330 Olds, 300 Buick, and they would have higher stall than this. This is from a 98, so it probably has lower stall. But I mean, the converter in that tranny was 1,300 and 2,500. You can see this one here is 1,800, 3,000. That's a modified one. So this one is probably 1,300 and 2,500. But if you don't have a switch pitch and you want one, what are you gonna do? You're gonna find this shit. So again, for nothing, I took it. What the hell? So that's the story with that. So I was editing this video and I realized I don't have a closing shot. And I say goodbye to everybody. While watching all the video, I said, man, my shop is a fucking shit house. I really need to clean this thing up. There's clutter everywhere. There's junk everywhere. Anyway, what I did was I moved the Bridgeport to this side of the shop. Waiting my electrician to come and wire it. I put my bandsaw over here. It's just sideways for the moment because I got to move it out of the way for him to get to the wiring. It goes in that big box over there, I think. Here's Dave's engine, which hopefully he'll get out of here soon. If he takes the one upstairs too, hint, hint, Dave, I'll put this 350 Olds up there. That'll give me all that space right there. I put the tire machine down the other end of the shop behind the Camaro. Put a couple of shelves in my window below the air conditioner. I moved my toolboxes over here sideways. This one's sideways, this one's against the wall. I turn this workbench sideways. I try to make a new home for all kinds of stuff, to get it out of my way and make it situate neatly. I still have too much shit. This is 6-cylinder parts, those pipes, that box, that big box. That's all going with the 6-cylinder when it finally leaves, Dave. Can I say I need the room, buddy? So I guess that's it. It's a lot neater. It's still 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag, but what are you gonna do? I have too much stuff. So there you go. I rearranged some stuff. It looks a little neater to me. I took care of some projects I've been hanging over my head for a while. I fixed a few things on my saw. I ordered some parts to fix that other bandsaw upstairs. I'll set that one up for wood cutting, so I'll have a metal one and a wood cutting one back to back, side by side. Because once in a while I do have to cut, like I had to cut those shelves to fit. So there you go. I did a little neatening. Now I can see how it works for me and try to get some work done on the Camaro. So, as I always say, hopefully your projects are going better than mine. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later.